Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 134 in the series. Welcome to the Shorn for yarn launch party. Yes, it's not just welcome to the yarn room like I always tell you, but it is a yarn launch party today, and we do this every year when the new Shorn yarn comes out. It's an exciting time. I showed you the yarn last time. This time I have all the finished objects, all the samples for the kits that come out with the yarn. I'm going to talk to you about the designers. We have some wonderful designers working with the yarn this year. And yeah, we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to talk about the kits. We're going to talk about the yarn. It's a happy day for me, as you can probably tell. So before we get to the party, I want to make sure I welcome everybody and say welcome back to those of you who are coming back. It's always lovely to see you. I've been enjoying our Saturday Zooms. If you're interested in that, we're going to keep those going for a little while longer at least, and you can always contact me at knittingthestash@gmail.com if you want to come hang out with our knitting group on Saturdays. We have lots of fun. 2 o'clock Eastern is the time, and we have people from all over the world in there, and it's so much fun. And if you're looking for me, you can find me and all my classes and the yarns and all that kind of stuff over on knittingthestash.com. And I will be also sharing it's not a secret link, it's a special link for you all on YouTube. Because Shorn is not officially publicly being launched until Tuesday. But for those of you who hang out with me on YouTube, I wanted to make sure to have a special link available so that if you are interested in the yarn or any of the kits that I talk about today, there's going to be a link down in the description here where it will take you directly over to a kind of super secret page just for YouTube viewers to get your hands on the yarn. So, and if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Generally the podcast is about sweater design, sweater construction, sweater modification. That makes up the bulk of the episodes. So this episode is a little different. And if you're looking for sweatery type stuff, just head over to any of the other episodes and you're very likely to find exactly the garment discussion that you're looking for. If you want to talk about yarn, this is going to be a fun launch party, I promise. And speaking of sweaters, I usually tell you what I'm wearing. So this is the My Lopey sweater by Sweater Freak. And I was knitting this as an experiment at the same time that I was knitting Weatherman, which is another Lopey sweater. This one's top down, the other one's bottom up. So I wanted to experiment to find just the right gauge to get my perfect size for both of those sweaters. It was a really fun experiment, and if you're interested in those episodes, just look back a few episodes and you'll find both Weatherman and My Lopey sweater. I'm now working on a new Lopey sweater that I think I'm going to do some random design on the yoke myself. I'm taking all the basic specs that I used for these two sweaters and applying them to this new Lopey sweater in this beautiful rusty kind of burgundy red. And I'm going to use up scraps, I think, of my other colors and stuff for the yoke. So stay tuned for that. It should be kind of fun. The other thing that's going on is the TV Knitting KAL. So if you're interested in knitting something that's related to TV, movies, media of any kind, this could be like the Mr. Rogers sweater book. It could be a sweater that you saw on an Outlander episode. It could be anything related to media. We have a Ravelry thread going on and we are all knitting various things related to TV, movies, books, things like that. So I already knit my first scarf, which was Moria, based on the Lord of the Rings series, and I know there's a lot of chatter happening over in the thread about people sharing screenshots and doing all kinds of making fun decisions about what they're going to knit for the KAL. And the KAL will run all year long, so feel free to jump in anytime you want and let us know what you're knitting for your TV media KAL this year. Yeah. So let's get the yarn launch party started. I feel like we need some really fun 90s music to kind of lead into this. So Shorn 4, this is the 4th year I've been making yarn, and each year it's a different yarn. The fleece has so far come from Kathy Capel's beautiful flock in Sydney, Illinois. She's raised a number of different kinds of breeds of sheep, from Leicester Longwools to Corriedale. She's had a couple of Finn sheep. She's had, I think there was even a Cormo sheep mixed in there. There's definitely some Corriedale Teeswater cross sheep. But the majority of the fleece for this yarn for the last 4 years has come from her Corriedale and Corriedale Teeswater sheep. And Corriedale is a good medium fleece, kind of like, I think of it as kind of an all-purpose. It has a lot of sproing and crimp to it. Pretty darn soft, but it's not quite as fine as a merino or a cormo, and it's not quite as lustrous as a long wool. But the cool thing about it is that when you blend Corriedale and Corriedale Teeswater, which is a long wool, you do get some really pretty luster to the yarn. So this yarn I feel like is kind of like the perfect yarn. I'm just gonna say that it's kind of like the perfect yarn because it is Very multi-purpose. You could use it for sweaters, you could use it for accessories, which is what we did with the kits this year again. And it's soft enough to sit next to your skin, but it's tough enough because it has a little bit of that long wool in it to last and kind of stand the test of time. You're not going to see a lot of pilling with this yarn. And it is a 3-ply DK weight, so it's also kind of a good weight. It's not a worsted and it's not a fingering weight, so it's kind of a good medium weight yarn too. I just think it's like the all-around winner for yarn. Plus we've got the natural gray color. So this is what it looks like. I showed it to you on the last episode of the cast, and it has this beautiful natural gray because most of the fleece that I got from Kathy last year were white, with the exception of, I think there was one or maybe 1.5 darker fleece, like a chocolate brown to a black fleece. And we blended that in. I asked the mill to blend it all together. This is Stonehenge Fiber Mill up in Michigan, and they do a beautiful job with their yarn. The wait times were a little longer this year. So normally we would launch Shorn way back in like the beginning of the year in February or March. But times, because of the pandemic and because of a bunch of different backups and things, the mill time this year was actually closer to a year rather than 6 months. So here we are. Here we are in October, and it's the perfect time of year for knitting sweaters and accessories. So that's Shorn 4. And a huge shout out to Kathy for raising such beautiful sheep and fleece over the years. She has now retired from having a flock. So this is actually the last version of the yarn that will feature exclusively her fleece. I have a few of her fleece left over from this last year that will make it into Shorn 5, but Shorn 5 will also be made up of some other fleece that I've been gathering from some other wonderful shepherds. So if you are thinking to yourself you want to complete your Shorn collection, or you're thinking you love Kathy's fleece and how they spin up into yarn, this is going to be the last year that Shorn is made up exclusively of her, from her flock. So it's a very special yarn to me. It means a lot because Kathy and I have been friends for a very long time, and I've worked with her sheep, and she's taught me so much about shepherding. And anyway, I'm going on and on about this because this yarn just really means a lot to me. It comes from a friend. It comes from sheep that I've fed zucchini to in my backyard, and yeah, you get the picture, right? Okay, so this is Shorn 4. I'll leave it at that. It's a beautiful yarn. I'm particularly proud of it and happy with it this year. And we have 3 beautiful patterns that go with it. So every year we do the yarn launch, we also do kits at the same time because it's nice to know what to knit with your yarn, right? You have this beautiful yarn, you're like, it's one thing to collect it and curate it in your stash, but it's another to actually make some things with it. So we have 3 beautiful patterns, and I'll introduce you to them one at a time here. The first one is the Vincent's Cowl, right? This is by Kendra Castillo. And I've made the small size here, and you can see that the small size is still really generous. It's like the perfect cowl size. Cowls are notoriously hard to photograph. For anybody who's ever knit anything, you know that once you put it around your neck, it kind of like just scrunches up and it does what it's supposed to do, which is become a cowl. But that's difficult to photograph. So I wanted to take some time to show you the actual object and show you what it looks like as a cowl. You can see the fit is really nice. It has enough extra fiber to kind of sit very well around your neck and back. It would be great, I'm like eating it. It would be great underneath the coat to kind of keep you warm. And what Kendra did, Kendra is Balanced Skein. She has her own podcast on YouTube. She's very active on Instagram, and I'll put her details below so that you can follow her around if you'd like to. She does beautiful sweater work. That's actually how I found her, because I was looking for different podcasts and I saw her podcast and her finishing work on her sweaters. I've talked about her on here before. I love the way she does sweaters. And she's just finished a couple of other beautiful striped sweaters. She did a cabled sweater just recently. She's an amazing, amazing person. And I was so excited that she was going to design something for Shorn. So this is Vincent's Cowl. And I like that it looks a little bit like a superhero, like, you know, like a little bit of a superhero kind of look to it. And it has, it's bottom up, and you start with the beautiful ribbing down here, and then you slowly start cabling on either side to create this kind of stockinette fabric in the center until you come back to the ribbing at the top. So both sides of the cowl have the same V, and the cabling is, I always love to have a pattern such as this one in the collection for Shorn each year, because it's not only beautiful, but it's very practical, and it's perfect for someone who's just starting out with cables, like learning cables for the first time, because all you're doing is a 1x2 cable here and a 1x2 cable here. So it's very simple cabling, and it's not all over cables. You're not having cable all the time constantly. And it's easy to kind of get in the rhythm. So as you're going up one side, you can kind of see how it's working, how you're kind of setting those stitches to the side every other row. So if you're learning how cables work, this particular pattern is great because you can actually visualize what's happening. The pattern is charted and written, so that's also great for an adventurous beginner to learn how to cable, because you can check out the chart, and if you have questions about the chart, you have the written instructions that go right along with each row to explain what you should be doing. So it's a quick knit. The small size is just a single skein of yarn, so just one of these skeins will make you a really nice squishy cowl for the winter. And that is Kendra Castillo's design for Shorn 4. Beautiful Vincent's cowl. That's been very popular over in the subscriber pre-sale, I must say. If you're on the mailing list, you know that you got a link for the subscriber pre-sale. I think it was back on Thursday or something like that. So yeah, it's been very popular so far, and I can see why, because it's very beautiful, fun, kind of meditative knit. The second pattern in the collection is from Mary Rawick, and Mary is also active on Instagram. I think she's been knitting for, I feel like she's in the Saturday Zoom along with Kendra, and I think Mary's been knitting for like 20 years or something like that, 30 years maybe. So she knows what she's talking about too. Just like Kendra, she's an accomplished knitter, and she created this Hollyhock Wrap, which is 3 skeins of Shorn to make this wrap, and I've put it on the mannequin here just so you can see how it kind of sits. It has a single button up top here with a button loop, and it's just a rectangle. So let me show you that, how it looks once you take it off your shoulders. We've got the single button loop here, the button over there, and it's a rectangle. Isn't that cool? So you start over here on this side, kind of knitting back and forth, and you're knitting vertically, right? And you're creating these beautiful globe cable that was inspired by Nora Gaughan's knitted cable source book. And then you have these beautiful little mini baubles that kind of alternate on these raised knitted rows set on this background of reverse stockinette. So everything really pops, and you can see why. I mean, Shorn is a 3-ply yarn, so it really shows cables very well. They just sit right off the surface in a really incredible 3-dimensional kind of way, and doesn't have any ribbing or anything on either end. And this is partially because it will you can get this whole wrap out of just 3 skeins of yarn. And then to wear it or to style it, what I like to do is you take your buttonhole and you kind of wrap the under part here and attach your buttonhole to your button over in that upper corner, and then you just adjust it so that this part sits underneath this part here, like I had it before, so that you end up with like a triangle on the front and the wrap kind of around your neck and around the back there, and it kind of squishes up in the middle. It's a beautiful knit, and I think it would be great for an intermediate knitter who is willing to try some different all over kind of cable motifs and mini baubles. The cool thing here is that the mini baubles don't require you to slip like 7 stitches over a stitch. Oh, those baubles will just kill you every time. But these baubles are really actually very simple, and you create them with just a couple movements of the needles, and you don't have to slip a million stitches over another stitch, which for me, I was like, whew, we're not doing that. So you get the mini bauble technique. You have an I-cord edge on this, which I think provides a really beautiful finished detail to the whole thing. And you get to learn this really neat afterthought buttonhole technique from this pattern. I showed you the buttonhole before. You basically use your yarn tail to create this buttonhole that's reinforced, and then you can close up your wrap if you want to wear it in that kind of triangular fashion by attaching it to the button over on the side there. So there's some cool techniques in this one. It's also been very popular in the pre-sale, the subscriber pre-sale. And like I said, 3 skeins of Shorn will get you the whole wrap. And actually you might even have enough to do an extra repeat if you wanted to make it a little bit longer. So that one's by Mary Rawick. It is the Hollyhock Wrap. beautiful wrap. I had so much fun knitting that. It was, again, really just, it made sense as a pattern. It's charted, it's written, and there's just clear instructions on both of these patterns, I think. So the last knit is my own design. This is the Ziggy Hat, and I showed it to you all, oh, it must have been a month ago or so, because I was asking for test knitters. And so this pattern has been test knit. The test knitters had a lot of fun with it. I got such fun messages from them about knitting this hat. So it is also charted and written pattern, and it is a play on the movement of these stitches. So you're just basically doing very simple, it's hardly a cable. They're just these 1x1 cables that you're kind of moving your stitches one way and then moving them the other way. And in between here, you have stockinette, and then in between these, you have reverse stockinette. So you have some interesting texture going on, some simple movement of the stitches, if you're interested in learning how that kind of thing works. And this is what the crown looks like. I'm trying to get the, this is what the crown looks like. So you can see all those zigzags kind of come together at the top of the hat. Another technique in here is a turned brim, and it is a turned brim with ribbing on the inside. And that way you still have the stretch and the double warmth of that extra fabric for the brim, but you don't have to turn your brim on the outside, and therefore that ziggy pattern, zigzag, can go all the way down to the bottom of your hat. So it's a cool technique. I learned it from Isabel Kramer's, one of her hats, I think, had a similar technique where you turn the brim and put the ribbing on the inside. So thanks Isabel Kramer for that wonderful idea. And yeah, so that's the Ziggy Hat. This one takes just one skein of yarn as well. So it's another one skein wonder kind of a kit. So those are all the patterns for the kits, and I want to say a huge thank you to Kendra, Castillo, and Mary Rawick for jumping on board to design these beautiful patterns. Their patterns have been tech edited, everything's been test knit, so you're in good hands if you want to go for any of these kits and try your hand at some cables or some stitch movement, some texture, all those kind of fun things will be part of those kits. So the yarn and the kits are now available to you through a special page over on the website. You won't be able to find it on the regular website. You have to follow the link down below in the description. It's my secret YouTube link for those of you who are watching the yarn launch to head over and check out the kits and the yarn if you're interested. One thing I always forget to say, I'm just remembering now, is the basic specs for the yarn. Like I said, it is a 3-ply DK weight yarn. Each skein is about 250 yards for 3.5 ounces or about 100 grams. So that should give you a sense of how much you might need if you're looking to think about sweater quantities or things like that. Most of these patterns for the kits were knit on size, I think 5, 6, and 7 needles, US 5, 6, and 7. I did a quick swatch in a size 6 just to give you a sense of the fabric, which I think will show up on here. So this is a size 6 fabric, and you can see the kind of density of it, and the stitch definition I think is pretty great. So yeah, it's a fun yarn. I'm so excited about the patterns this year. It was so fun to work with both Kendra and Mary and get their designs involved with Shorn. So along with the super secret, not so super secret, link to the yarn just for you YouTube viewers down below, I also want to do a giveaway. So we're going to give away 2 skeins of Shorn yarn to one winner. We do this every year. It's a fun way to get the yarn out into the world. So to enter to win 2 of these skeins, just leave a comment here or over on the Ravelry group. I'll have a thread opened up, and let us know what your favorite new technique is, something that you're thinking about learning, something that you want to learn. Let us know that technique in the comments here or over on the Ravelry thread, and you'll be entered to win these 2 skeins of yarn. And you can read all the specific details about the giveaway in the description below. I will draw a winner in 2 weeks' time and send this yarn off to them. So yeah, good luck, and let us know those techniques that you're learning or you want to learn right now, new knitting techniques. And as long as we're talking about giveaways, I need to announce the winner for last episode's giveaway for a beautiful large project bag from SDIVA Designs. That's Karen up in Canada. She hand makes these beautiful bags. This is my own bag, but this is the design. the bees for the bag that we have for the giveaway. And the giveaway winner was chosen at random, and it is Lisa Florikowski. Congratulations, Lisa. I've notified you over on YouTube, and I just need you to send me your postal info so that I can pop your prize in the mail to you. Congratulations on winning the SDIVA Designs Honeybee Project Bag. So I hope you had a good yarn launch with me. It was wonderful to hang out with all of you. And I do want to say a special thanks to the Patreon producers. We've got Patreon producers and Kofi donations that have been coming in. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been supporting the podcast. So a special thanks to Nargis, Erica, Kendra, and Pat for your support over on Patreon and being producers for the podcast this month. And Kofi thank yous to Sue and Benti, Kim, a special thank you to Susan. Thank you so much for all of your support. Louise and Sunny for buying coffees to support the podcast. My appreciation goes out to you. I hope you've enjoyed the yarn lunch. It's been fun to spend some time with you here in the yarn room. So I think that's about it for me this weekend. Thanks for hanging out at the yarn launch party. And if you are heading to Rhinebeck this weekend, keep a lookout for me and Spencer. I think we're going to be there for maybe a little while on Sunday. So if you see us, wave a hello, come say hi. And otherwise, I will see you in a couple of weeks. So enter the giveaway, check out the Shorn stuff, and thanks for everything, guys. See you. Bye.